Bucknutters, welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, January 22nd, 2016. I am Dave Biddle, and I am joined by the people's champ, Matt Baxendell. Baxendell will be a big day for Ohio State recruiting today, maybe. Rashard Lawrence will announce his intentions at 11:30 a.m. 11:30 a.m. is when the press conference is scheduled for, so probably around 12:15 p.m., 12:30 p.m. he'll actually announce, only slightly kidding there. Now, even our LSU insiders, backs, are saying that Rashard is torn. I still think he's going to pick LSU. If it's 50-50, I just think LSU is going to win out. He's a kid from Louisiana. I hope I'm wrong, but I think LSU is going to land Rashard Lawrence today. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, if it starts at 11:30 and we get a 12:30 announcement, I want to know what the Louisiana version of Make the Lacrosse Player is, because we all remember the Kyle Dodson drawn-out announcement a few years ago. But I agree with you. Here's the problem. We all want Lawrence to go to Ohio State. Everybody on Bucknuts who's a subscriber or from the state of Ohio, we look at it and we say, why would you go to LSU when Les Miles might not be there in a year when you could go to Ohio State where you can play for national title? The problem is he's a Louisiana kid. And think about it. If he was from Ohio and LSU was recruiting an Ohio kid, wouldn't we say there's no way he leaves Ohio to play for Ohio State to go to LSU, which is 1,000 miles away? I'd love for them to get him. I think they have a great chance, and that his high school isn't the most LSU-friendly place. A lot of kids get sent places. But he said repeatedly he doesn't want his family to have to travel 1,000 miles to see him play. And to me, that kind of shows you where his heart's really at, is that, sure, he probably likes OSU from a football perspective better, but he's not just making a decision on football. He's making a decision on whether his family can see him play, and to me, that makes me not so optimistic that the coin lands Ohio State's way. I would love to be wrong, but, recruiting is like politics. It's all local a lot of times, and I expect Lawrence to stay down south.
Yeah, again, we'll find out today, 11:30-ish, but I'm with you. I think he'll pick LSU. I'll just be pleasantly surprised if he decides to play football for the Buckeyes. The depth chart at Ohio State has to be enticing, and as you mentioned, the coaching situation has to be enticing. Urban Meyer's not in danger of losing his job. Les Miles was flat-out fired this past year by the athletic director had decided to fire him. Just boosters and just public pressure just kind of got to him, and they changed their mind. So we'll see what happens, but today at 11:30 a.m., Rashard Lawrence will announce his intentions. And then if they lose out on Rashard Lawrence, people are thinking, well, Buckeyes will just turn to JUCO transfer Jamar King, right? He'll be the next guy in. Not that simple. I think they slow-played him a little bit from what I'm hearing because they want to get Rashard Lawrence. Nothing against Jamar King, but very similar to Deshaun Watson a few years ago. They really wanted Deshaun Watson, and we see why. Deshaun Watson, pretty good quarterback. Well, they really want Rashard Lawrence, and they've slow-played Jamar King a little bit. So I'm hearing, it's not over yet, Bax, but I'm hearing that Jamar King's probably going to go to Alabama. Alabama has shown him more love. So Buckeyes could strike out on defensive tackles. Both of the guys are in on Rashard Lawrence and Jamar King. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a giant hole in the class. I mean, let's be real honest about it. Urban Meyer is an exceptional recruiter, and he doesn't have many holes in his recruiting classes, but if you don't get a big D tackle this year, that's a big disappointment. And I tell you what, a guy like Jamar King, if he's being slow played by Ohio State and he's being, front burnered by Alabama, where do you think he would go? Where would you go if you were him? Ohio State knew they were in on Lawrence. Their goal is to get Lawrence, but you're right. The Watson comparison is a good one. Ohio State passed on a lot of quarterbacks thinking that they could flip Watson from Clemson that year, and when it all came down to it, most of those quarterbacks that they could have had were committed elsewhere, and they ended up with Stephen Collier, who was a lower-rated kid. This year, the version of Stephen Collier that they're chasing in D-tackle recruiting is a kid who also has the opportunity to play at Alabama. So I think they know a little bit about D-line development there. So for Ohio State, this is going to be a class we talk about as being a number one in the country kind of team, but it's still potentially going to have a big hole in the middle of the defense at a position where the team's depth right now really isn't that great. Depth chart should be a big selling point in recruits going forward as defensive tackle. And it makes sort of the Lawrence announcement, I think, a little bit more important this morning. You can't strike out at that position. You just can't.
So we'll see what happens. Not a done deal, but I just want to let the listeners know what I was hearing about Jamar King. He could pick the Buckeyes, but if I had to guess right now, I think he's going to pick Alabama. Some good news. Malik Harrison, he will announce on National Signing Day, and it sounds like he's going to pick the Buckeyes. I will be shocked if Malik Harrison is not in this class. Some people wondered, would there be room for him? Have they moved on now that they had Keandre Jones? No, they're going to take Malik Harrison, it sounds like, and he will announce on National Signing Day. Again, not final, just that's what I'm hearing, that and Malik Harrison will pick the Buckeyes on National Signing Day. Your thoughts, Bax?
Well, if you bring an Ohio kid in late, give him an offer, and bring him on a visit, it's one of those situations where it's hard not to take him if he wants to be a Buckeye. I think that's kind of your tipping point. I think a lot of people were looking at it like, where's the room going to be for him, especially if Corey Smith is able to come back and get a 6th year. But, you know what, if they can take a local Ohio kid who's a highly rated athlete who may only be a 3-star kind of player, reminds me of a lot of great players we've had in the past year. I'm for bringing those guys to Ohio State and keeping them away from Michigan State. So if they can get Malik Harrison, you know, I'm certainly not going to be against it, though I am still a little skeptical in the number situation myself, Dave.
Jordan Fuller is another one that I'm hearing very good vibes about. I'm sure everybody who follows recruiting is hearing good vibes about Jordan Fuller from Ohio State standpoint. Things could change, as the other guys were talking about, but it sounds like if Jordan Fuller had to pick right now, he's going to pick Ohio State, and it sounds like it's to the point where it'll be very, very surprising if he goes anywhere other than Ohio State. And this would be a big get because they needed another safety in this class. I know he can play multiple positions, but Jordan Fuller is going to be a safety in college. Big-time get from New Jersey if they're able to land him. Again, your take on Jordan Fuller.
Well, I agree with you. I feel way better about him than I do, for example, with DeMar Hamlin. I think Fuller's going to be a guy who has to look at Ohio State's depth chart and think he can play right away. I mean, look at the safety position next year. That's the spot on the defense that we're worried about. I think getting a big-time kid like that from the state of New Jersey with the staff that we currently have and their ties in that part of the country is only going to help. You know, that's a state that if New Jersey was able to ever keep its kids at home, and that Rutgers would really have a program to be proud of. But, you know, this is what New Jersey does. They send the best players elsewhere. You talk about guys like Eli Apple, you know. You talk about guys like, for example, Rashawn Gary, who's certainly not staying at home at Rutgers. This is what happens whenever you're one of those states that doesn't have a big-time program in it but has a lot of high school talent. So I think for Ohio State going out, getting Fuller is certainly going to be a big piece to add to this class. He's a kid we've been talking about for a while. And, you know, it's one of those closing pieces that's going to make Ohio State's number 1 or number 2, wherever they end up recruiting class, look all that much better as we get down here towards the end. He's a big-time player, no question about it.
The last recruit I want to talk about, Sam Bruce from the Ohio State pipeline of St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Wouldn't that be nice if they could have a new Cleveland-Glenville pipeline, but it's just from St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale. We're almost getting to that point, and I'm hearing Sam Bruce will probably pick Ohio State. He's still somewhat torn, but again, it'll be surprising if he's not in the class. All 5'8" of Sam Bruce. I don't care how tall he is. This kid, he is so fast and quick, and he's tough. I just think he's a perfect fit for that H-back spot in Urban Meyer's offense. So it's sounding pretty good for Sam Bruce, Bax.
Yeah, and there's been all kinds of other little stuff that's happened around it that makes you really think he's going to be a Buckeye. Aside from the fact you have the Bosa's in his ear, there was a thing that was posted on Wikipedia that said Sam Bruce is an Ohio State wide receiver, one of those little things that made people raise their eyebrows. He's a guy who, let's be honest, I mean, I think most of us have given up on him when he was committed to Miami. Mark Richt came in, which is a really good hire for them, and you figured he'd stay. But it turns out he has a great relationship with the wide receivers coach who used to be at Miami. And when he left, Bruce kind of opened his recruitment back up. And let's face it, if you have the opportunity to go to Ohio State and play football, or you have the opportunity to go to Miami and play football today, who are you going to pick? I think you're going to clearly pick Ohio State, particularly if you have the opportunity to go in and be, in sort of a pipeline situation where there's a lot of kids you know from high school. You know, Bosa's just a great example of it currently. And, you know, Nick's going up now. They've been teammates for years. And the Bosa's apparently aren't huge recruiters for Ohio State because they just do their own thing. But in this case, they've certainly been all over Sam Bruce. And I think for Ohio State, this one's that they're going to end up getting him. Honestly, the only way I think they don't get Sam Bruce is if Nicole Hardman decides to say, hey, Urban, you got me too. Then they have to worry about numbers again. But then again, I think they may make it work if something like that happened. And I certainly don't think Hardman's going to come north.
Switching gears to basketball, Ohio State lost 75-64 at number 22 Purdue last night. They teased us. They played well for a lot of the game. Buckeyes led 36-33 at the halfbacks. Jayshawn Tate, his best game of the year. Just when people were starting to sour on Jayshawn Tate, he showed us, why we fell in love with him last year, just with his junkyard dog style of game. He had 17 points, 10 rebounds, just brought a lot of energy to the floor. Jaquan Lyle on the other end of the stick, though, man, he's just miscast. It's not his fault, but he is not a point guard. He's not a point guard at all. I don't know why Thad Matta thinks he is. Jaquan Lyle's line: 2 points, 2 assists, 4 turnovers. Then you have a kid, A.J. Harris. I know he's a freshman, but so is Lyle. Harris is made to be a point guard. He comes in there, gives the team a spark. The kid only plays 12 minutes the entire game, and Thad refuses to play Lyle and Harris at the same time. Meanwhile, somehow Mark Loving gets a pass. I've never seen a player so lazy and soft as Mark Loving. He plays 36 minutes last night, And he's not. He can't shoot this year. He's supposed to be a pinpoint shooter. 0 for 3 last night from 3-point range. 3 of 11 overall. 9 points. He doesn't rebound. He doesn't play defense. Somehow Mark Loving gets a pass. I would love to see Thad Matta start A.J. Harris at point guard, move Jaquan Lyle to the 3 or the 2, get Mark Loving out of there, make him the bench player. I'm getting a little fired up here, Bax, because this team has potential. We probably won't see it realized till next season, but last night they really blew it late.
Well, first of all, you've never seen a player as lazy and unenthusiastic. Come on, were you watching Amir Williams the last 4 years? Let's be real honest here. I mean, geez.
Good point.
Mark Loving, I mean, geez, Amir Williams make Mark Loving look like Michael Jordan out there, but I digress. I agree with you. I think A.J. Harris needs to be on the court more, and I think we saw last night a real big step in progress for this team. This team feels like it could be really good at some point down the line. They're just so young that they're kind of figuring out what it takes to actually win a lot of these games. Like the Kentucky game, we all look at it and we go, wow, that's an amazing win for them. But the truth of the matter is that young teams have to learn how to win. Young teams have to learn how to bring consistent effort in. I don't agree with some of the stuff Thad's doing here, but I think part of Loving's reason he gets a pass is because he's one of the more quote-unquote veteran players, even if he's really not being that productive. I think this team just is going to be your classic up-and-down kind of team this year. They're going to have some games where they go out and you see their talent really shine through. They're going to win a game or two they shouldn't win. And on the flip side, they're going to lose a game or two they shouldn't lose. I'm excited to see this team, though, because at the start of the year, it just looked like a train wreck. And now it looks like there's actually some talent and potential there. I think it's going to be really exciting to see this team come tournament time, because if they can make a little bit of a run in the Big Ten tournament, maybe they can still get into the big dance. And I've said it multiple times in the bucket. If Thad can get this young of a team, this discombobulated of a team at the start of the year, to 20 wins, it may be the best coaching job he's ever done. And I agree with you. I think it starts with playing A.J. Harris a lot more.
It'll be a big day for recruiting. Bill Kurlick and Alex Clyde will be all over it on our site, so keep it locked to Bucknuts for the big day that is recruiting for Ohio State football. Thank you very much to the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. I appreciate it, buddy. And thanks to the listeners out there for tuning into the show. I hope you have a great day and a great weekend. Take it away, best damn band in the land.